All right, I want to welcome you back. If you don't know, I have now three articles out for the Hard News Network. Two of them are really connected to the John Mattis issue, and I really want to urge you guys to check it out. Look at hardnews.network. You have three articles from me. This one is the third one about Joe Biden, but the other two we're going to be working hard to get the word out about the fake news that was perpetrated on Bernie Sanders supporters in 2016 and against them thereafter. So, now that we have that out of the way, Joe Biden declared his candidacy. Unfortunately, I want you guys to know, hard news for some reason. When I put photos on it, it doesn't render, at least not for me. I've talked to HB and he said that he's going to check into it. So hopefully, there's a lot of images in here. So I included them hoping that over the weekend it will resolve itself. I don't know. Anyway, so I gave the 5 advantages and 5 disadvantages for Joe Biden in 2016, or sorry, in 2020. And those of you that are hoping for an article that will straight up bash Joe Biden, you're gonna be a bit disappointed. There's gonna be certain things that, of course, he did that I think are qualitatively, they're just bad, and nobody will agree to vote for him. But the fact is that he will be the front runner in many states, and we will do a campaign profile of his candidate profile. Sorry, probably not too long from now. There are other candidates, and I think it's wrong to just put one person as a leading candidate when in reality we haven't seen any of them talk about each other or seen them on the debate stage. There's so many unknowns, and when people say that there's a front runner because of current polling, well, I'm sorry, but I don't really see polling in the absence of actual events really mattering. I mean, the latest town halls, from what I heard, were not very well watched, the ones on CNN, maybe because they weren't well produced, maybe because they just weren't good. Maybe because the candidates weren't that good. But Joe Biden, I'll tell you what are the 5 disadvantages the 5 advantages first. So there's 5 up, 5 down. The first, of course, is his endorsements. And he's been endorsed several times by other, mainstream politicians that are very big. They have, obvious connections to power. Barack Obama himself hasn't been forthcoming with an endorsement yet, probably because he doesn't want to, appear that he's intervening too openly in the race. I understand that actually. Hillary Clinton, I don't know if she's endorsed anyone yet, but the reality is that he's already gotten the endorsement of several senators, and he's gotten a lot of other establishment people to endorse him. Now, we're going to get into some of the people that endorsed him who probably won't really help his cause. But that's for a little later. That's for the disadvantages. Now, the other advantage that he would have is that, unlike Bernie Sanders, who is his main competition and who could still probably beat him, I think that Bernie Sanders is not as screwed as some people would say. I think that there are a lot of people in the country that are motivated to go out and vote for Bernie Sanders that might not care about voting for the primary. Like a lot of the Biden voters, I could see actually sitting out the primary because they wouldn't care, because they think that he's a shoo-in. Those are the same type of people who didn't vote in 2016, and then they blamed Russia for getting Trump elected. No, the fact is that there were there were a lot of people who just didn't go out and vote. And Joe Biden, I don't think that he's going to be able to get out the vote as well as somebody like Bernie Sanders. Okay, that's just my opinion. You can take that for what you want. Another issue is that's an advantage of his, is that he is not Hillary Clinton. And you might be laughing at that, but I mean, who will argue with that? Hillary Clinton was one of the most polarizing candidates in American history. The fact that she became she became the nominee in 2016 is the subject of so much conversation because of so many things that she did that were openly cheating and basically behaving like she was the front runner the entire time and laughing, cackling during the debates and stuff like that. And yeah, some people say, well, that's because of misogyny or whatever. No, there's a lot of women who laugh in public. And, there's women who, Roseanne's laugh is one of the most iconic laughs in television. I'm not talking about her politics, but remember her stupid show, which I never really got into, but I guess a lot of people watched. I used to watch it as a kid because it was on TV, which is the reason a lot of people watch things. Why was it so successful? Because you had things like Roseanne laughing into the camera. That was a relatable laugh. Not with Hillary. Joe Biden is relatable. Are any of the women running in the race relatable? I guess Elizabeth Warren, if her record wasn't so poisoned by certain issues. Elizabeth Warren sounds basically like somebody's auntie or something. Some of these other people like Amy Klobuchar, I guess she sounds normal, but she's just not very inspiring. But no, Hillary Clinton, everything about her image was just poison. Look at this. This is something that Joe Biden would never end up getting caught doing. There's plenty of things that he could do that are retarded, but let's get into this.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
Yeah, that was one of the dumbest forced jokes that you've ever seen. So that's part 3. By the way, I'll just put this in the chat if you guys want to read it for yourself. Sorry again for the images. But again, this is from the Hard News Network. There's an issue with them. Hello, Amy from Connecticut. Please consider subscribing to the channel. There's a little red box under the video if you want to subscribe, become part of our crazy train. And then another advantage he has, and again, there's a photo here of, I should have done this on the editor page, but I can't do that anymore. So, wow, this isn't going so well. But in any case, you had Andrew Yang and Tulsi Gabbard and a number of other progressives came out and they started to run their own campaigns. Mike Gravel is also running, and you have a number of other a number of other candidates have come in on the left, such as or skewed to the left. Mike Gravel is on the left. You have people like Elizabeth Warren has swerved pretty steadily to the left. She's talking about student loan forgiveness in a more extreme way than she used to before. You have people like Julian Castro basically being open borders people, stuff like that. So, yeah, you have a lot of extreme people in the Democratic Party that are running for the nomination. And unfortunately, they're going to, in many ways, cancel each other out if you're a progressive. Okay, I'm not a progressive. They can go fuck themselves for all I care. But the fact is that you have these people like Julian Castro. They're all racing to the left, and who's left in the center to attract all of those voters who are, maybe they don't have very defined opinions, but they'll definitely vote Democratic. That's Joe Biden. That's an advantage he has. And then, welcome, DI Freighter Watcher. We have the media, and the media is really they're the clowns that are going to really try to put the race in the bag for old Uncle Creepy Joe. So Creepy Uncle Joe, whichever way you want to say it, Creepy Uncle Joe. So which we'll get to too. The media. If you look at it, let's say that Joe Biden continues to, for one thing, if he's running, and he is running now, he is going to be a long-term candidate. He's not going to drop out after one primary or whatever. He's going to be a sustained candidacy. And throughout that candidacy, you're going to see the media basically pick winners in many of these cases. They're going to be talking about poll numbers and, Biden polls very well among, fucking paraplegics that have they've had accidents with ping pong tables or something. they'll come up with all sorts of like ridiculous stuff. Remember, in 2018 during the midterms, they started talking about the Senate popular vote and the House popular vote as if anybody gave a shit. So the fact is that this has been, it's been something that he's had an advantage with since his time joining Barack Obama. Once you became associated with Barack Obama, who was basically picked as their candidate by people like David Geffen and all of these Hollywood celebrities, Harvey Weinstein, and this was actually documented. They had a meeting at David Geffen's house with Weinstein there and that retard from the New York Times, Maureen Dowd. In fact, I'll pull it up. Okay, let's see. Maureen Dowd, 2008, Barack Obama. So you won't think I'm making this shit up. Let me see here. Nah, I think for a life lived hating Hillary. No, this was. By the way, we're not going to be on very long today. I do have somewhere to go. The reason I don't do as many live streams this week, even though I had a lot of time off, was pretty much because I was doing a lot of writing. And I hope you tell HB that you want to hear more of The Leopard, right? I mean, you do. You want to hear more of The Leopard, more... I'm just kidding. I just want to go on... When I have a major story, I like going on his show. I like the Hard Bastards channel because he doesn't give a shit about censorship. Let me see here. Okay, it's from Gawker, and it's from 2008. It says, David Geffen, you've got me to thank for Obama. And it says, having soured on the Clintons after raising huge sums of money for Bill and sleeping in the Lincoln bedroom twice, Geffen found himself enamored of Obama from the first. By the way, he's gay. From the first time he saw him on TV giving a speech at the 2004 Democratic National Convention. I thought he was a remarkable guy, Geffen told me today. After I heard him giving the speech, I called him up and said, you're going to run for president, and I'm going to support you. Geffen says Obama laughed and said he was very flattered, but that he wasn't running. Cut to 2 years later, he called me one day and said with a laugh, David, I guess you're right. I am running for president. I'd like your support. And, of course, I said you have it. So there you have it. There you have it. Let me see here. So you got Larry's back. Always a great show with Larry, I guess, right? No schizophrenia there at all. You got, I'm just trying to make the conversation more interesting in the chat there. So then you have the 5 disadvantages. Now, before we move on from the media, this is something that should be cited and it should be reminded because it is from a certified and dependable organization. The Center for Public Integrity have investigated and they found that 96% of journalists are supporting the Democratic Party to such an extent that they've donated to the Democrats or donated to Hillary Clinton in that case. Welcome, Kiana Rainey. We have Cher's here. Thank you, Cher. You guys should watch from 2 computers so we get more views. Also, by the way, hit the like button, guys, so that we somebody actually if apparently it used to be that YouTube, if you hit enough likes, more people would watch it, but I think they basically eliminated that because too many people like the wrong things. The 5 disadvantages is that he's white and he's also from Delaware, where people only go to found a company so that they can not pay any tax. I think Delaware is like the biggest tax shelter in the country, so all of your credit card companies are there. All these, I think a lot of the insurance companies are in Connecticut for similar reasons. and they just like to pay less taxes, which I guess is wrong if you're just an individual, right? But in any case, so the problem with being white and male in 2020 is that you're no longer the face of the party. The face of the party is, and this is according to Tom Perez, is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC. Okay, like it or not like it. I don't know if any of you in the chat are Democrats. I certainly am not. I don't. I think both parties are fucked. But it's not people like Joe Biden. It's Ocasio-Cortez, and then you have people like Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar. They're changing the image of the party, and yeah, they might be attracting a new type of person to the party, but they're also alienating other ones. So yeah, it's really becoming just a party that's more concerned about how you look as opposed to what you're talking about. Meanwhile, Connecticut is damn near bankrupt, says Amy. Yeah, I heard, what's the guy's name? Daniel Malloy, the governor, has basically run the state into the ground. And what was it, Connecticut, that they were trying to pass a law that was going to be 50% tax on ammunition to raise revenue? Now, if there's not that many gun owners in Connecticut, and if Connecticut gun owners just, they drove over to Maine and they bought ammunition, then what good does that do? They can drive to Maine, they can drive to New Hampshire. I believe Vermont would probably be cheaper. So yeah, absolutely. And I think that, unfortunately, I live in Ohio. I'm in a fortunate position as far as the state goes, but our states are becoming fewer and fewer, and we'll get to that at the end if we have a little time about the state of the states and the cities. That's what I'm going to call it. And the fact is that Joe Biden, who cut his teeth in the Senate, and he was there so many years, and the Senate has long been thought of as like the most patrician body in the U.S. government. You have a lot of people who are older, who have been in politics for a long time, people who are establishment candidates. Joe Biden is definitely that type of person. So when Ocasio-Cortez insulted Joe Lieberman, actually Joe Lieberman, to be fair, Joe Lieberman published a piece, I think it was in the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times, it was one of those, criticizing Ocasio-Cortez, claiming that she was the wrong type of person for the party, and Joe Lieberman is a very pro-Israel person. Obviously, Ocasio-Cortez is not. Okay, you guys can support. I'm former Israeli soldier, by the way, but I leave it for people to decide which side they're on that. But Joe Lieberman, he publishes this critical essay against Ocasio-Cortez, and she responded by saying, "New party, who dis?" Which was very, very, it was very, very telling, because that's like a millennial response, and she was basically insulting Joe Biden's longtime colleague in the Senate. Joe Lieberman was in the Senate for, I think, 20, 30 years for Connecticut, and Amy would probably know about that. And Ocasio-Cortez is just this brand new freshman. So you have basically a lot of, a generational conflict within the Democratic Party. And one of the issues that I brought up is that, for example, let me see here. Yeah, I saw that, Larry. I don't know if I'll get to watch it today, but maybe I'll put it on watch later. So James Eastland of Mississippi was somebody that Joe Biden claimed was one of his friends when he was in the Senate. And for those of you that don't know, James Eastland was a staunch segregationist. He was against the integration of schools. He was one of the diehard Southern Democrats, and I think he served in the Senate until 1986. And Biden bragged in 2017, when he was campaigning in Alabama for Roy Moore, that he could get along with James Eastland. And that's just not going to fly with the number of voters, okay? And these are things that people like Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, Julian Castro, Kiana mentioned Marianne Williamson. So a lot of those candidates are going to use that against Joe Biden. Let's see here. Amy is talking about the debunked lie of Charlottesville. You know, I want to ask you guys, and you know, I'm going to turn off the chat for a second so you guys can respond. This is my question. Do you think that that will affect his campaign? Because a lot of people are pointing out that that was wrong, what he said about Charlottesville. But do you think it will really matter? Do you think people will pay attention to the fact that it was a lie? Or will Biden get away with it? That's my question. So the other thing is, the number 2 is the neocon to beat Teflon Don. And the fact is, this was Joe Biden. You know what? This is actually a 7-minute long clip, so I'm not going to play it today. But you can again, I'll put this in the chat so that you guys can read through this. And even though the images are not working, the videos are. So you can watch these videos. Joe Biden he wasn't just a pro-Iraq senator. He was the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and he was one of the chief Democrats that helped to enable Joe Biden, or to enable George Bush to get the U.S. into Iraq. And this was, by the way, I was only 17 when the Iraq War erupted. Maybe even less. I think it was, yeah, I was 17 when it erupted. And I couldn't vote anyway. So even though at the time I would probably say I was not against the war, I was probably even leaning towards the war. I was 17 and I didn't even have the right to vote. When you talk about Joe Biden, talk about people who say later that the Iraq war was a mistake. Well, he had the authority, he had the power, almost more power than any other Democrat at the time, to oppose the Iraq war, and he didn't. He actually enabled it. So if you are an anti-war voter of whatever persuasion, progressive, independent, conservative, Democrat, Republican, I think that Joe Biden is a horrible candidate. In fact, he might be worse than President Obama, worse than Clinton, worse than many. I mean, he's been at this since the 70s. So that's a big issue. You have and you know, attendant to that is the fact that a lot of these warmongers are going and supporting her. You have people like Cindy McCain and Meghan McCain, the McCain widow and daughter of John McCain, and they are basically trying to garner. They're trying to get all of these never Trumper Republicans to jump on the Biden train. This actually, it might not work out for them during the primary. It may actually drive more voters who are, you know, they're traditional Obama voters to vote for somebody like Kamala Harris, maybe somebody with, you know, somebody with less association to the party establishment. I don't know. You could pick a lot of these people. Some of them seem to blur together. You know, Beto and you have like fucking Bucky, whatever his name is. They are jokes. But if Biden is identified with these idiots like the McCains, yeah, that he's going to lose some voters to them. And ultimately, I've said this in some of my other videos. I don't know if you guys have watched them, but check them out. Check out every one of my videos. Also hit like on every video and share it with your entire mailing list so that more people watch my shit. But in any case, I've said that it's very possible that this Democratic convention in 2020 could go to a second vote, meaning that the first vote, you won't have enough delegates for a single candidate to win on the first ballot. And then they'll have to kick it to the second vote, and it would end up being decided by superdelegates or perhaps a coalition, in which case that favors Joe Biden. But if he doesn't earn enough in the first round for the superdelegates to really be the factor, that's not good for him. And in fact, it could end up leading to a coalition of people that would put somebody else in as like Kamala Harris. So just think about that. It's a good topic of discussion. Other people that have endorsed him that are problematic for people, you know, Evan McMullin and Mindy Finn. I don't know if you guys remember them. Certainly you wouldn't remember Mindy Finn because nobody cared about Evan McMullin, but she was his vice presidential candidate, and Evan McMullin was this bald freakazoid. Okay, I'll pull up his picture here. I like to call him Evan McMonkey, but most people have called him Eggy McMuffin. And he's a CIA freak who's been, he's basically been a Never Trumper, and he represented the Never Trump movement during the 2016 election, and he ran as an independent, and basically the National Review and the Weekly Standard all endorsed him, and he got like maybe like some dude and a bunch of his wives and sisters voted for him in Utah, and that was about it. By the way, he's a Mormon. So him and Mindy Finn, they've basically endorsed Joe Biden. I know Mindy Finn did, and then Evan McMullin retweeted it. So I'm going to assume that Evan McMullin, who's a liar and a pathological, deep state warmonger, I'm going to assume that he's endorsing Joe Biden because he's lied about everything else. So I can't. If he denies it, I'm just going to assume that he's lying too. H.A. Goodman swears HRC will run, essentially be drafted. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's a good question. Like Amy says, I mean, it's a real question. Kiana Rainey says, Black Americans have left the Democratic Party. Well, I mean, if you think so, then you're welcome to tell me, like, if you want to. I tried hosting a member of the Blexit movement earlier this week. We had some technical difficulties. I'm a little skeptical that they've left it, but I think that a lot of them might end up not voting again just because of a lot of real problems in these Democrat-run districts, urban districts that are run by Democrats. Chicago, New York, St. Louis, Baltimore today. We're going to get to Baltimore, I promise. Another person that's endorsed Joe Biden is Tom Carper, who's the other senator. He also served with Biden in Delaware. And he's admitted to beating his wife and giving her a black eye. So those are the people that Biden has supporting him. And look, I try to tell the truth as much as I can on this channel and when I write these articles for HB. And the fact is that I think Biden has a good chance of winning the nomination and winning the presidency as it stands today. But that's not the way things work. The way things work is that events get in the way, and Biden has said some retarded shit over the years, and here's some of it.
My name's Sitza Gofard. I'm a senior at the college, and I'm the vice president of the student body here.
Isn't it a bitch? I mean, excuse me. Why shotgun?
I think the vice president very well knows that sometimes the words don't come out of your mouth the right way.
But I always say what I mean.
That if I wanted to be president of the United States, I could be vice president. I never make any big gaps. I mean, you guys love saying that about me.
But often his handsiness and comments
No DC-30
are likened to those of a crazy but lovable uncle. But as they veer toward the more bizarre variety, it's raising questions about appropriate behavior for someone eyeing the White House.
So earlier this week, Biden publicly used the term Shylocks in reference to aggressive money lenders. But it's a word considered anti-Semitic, a reference to a ruthless Jewish lender in Shakespeare's Merchant of Venice.
Said in the first 100 days.
I would probably fit that stereotype as a Jewish person, but let's keep going.
He's going to let the big banks once again write their own rules. Unchain Wall Street. They're going to put you all back in chains.
In Delaware, the largest growth in population is Indian Americans moving from India. You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent. I'm not joking.
Once again,
Yeah, that's basically what that's what he brings to the table. And then there's all these grope things, and I've gone over this before, and I don't have time today, but you can check that out. That's in the article. Kiana says that she said that they say that Bernie's in the lead. Look, I don't know if Bernie's going to be able to. This is another thing I'm going to say. Like, this fifth point over here is really hurting Bernie Sanders. There are a lot of progressives that are running, and There's not that many centrists, and it's simply splitting the vote. This is something Jimmy Dore's talked about. It's not only me saying it. So Bernie has a problem in terms of uniting the progressive base. Okay, I would say, and this is me talking, and this is my opinion, and what I would tell you if you don't want to vote for Donald Trump, you should vote for Tulsi Gabbard or Andrew Yang maybe, but definitely Tulsi Gabbard in the primaries. I might actually register here and vote for Tulsi Gabbard. I want her to be represented. I want her to be on the stage during the debates. And most of these other candidates are basically garbage. And she's not garbage. She's not. I'll admit it. There's certain things that she says I don't like, but she's actually not a piece of shit. And I mean, Larry, will you agree with me that not being a piece of shit is a pretty high achievement nowadays in politics? So that's my thought. If you're not going to vote for Donald Trump and you might vote for a Democrat, you might want to vote for Tulsi Gabbard, okay? At least in the primary. I'm not saying I would say it would have to take some sort of scuba diving accident in which I'll be, brain damaged and retarded for me to vote for somebody besides Donald Trump in the general. But if you're going to vote in the primary, you might have to fucking vote for Tulsi Gabbard or possibly Andrew Yang. Not like, there's certainly issues with him too. And then you get to the whole Spygate issue. Okay, and I included this talk by Dan Bongino here. It's a long-form talk. This would be 36 minutes long. But you guys have to start to wonder, the more revelations that are made by Barr the Barbarian of the Justice Department, William Barr, who I think is really scaring people right now in the establishment. More and more people are being, I mean, there were calls for him to resign. The calls for him to resign, they're masking it as, he's debased the Justice Department. He's eroded the trust and the public confidence in the spying agencies. Fuck the spying agencies. Fuck them all. Fuck them. Bill Barr the Barbarian, should be the standard bearer for, forget Trump for a second. If we have somebody right now who appears to be doing something to help shed light on this massive abuse of civil rights, the surveillance state, the Patriot Act, the multitude of intelligence agencies, the deep state, it is Bill Barr. And the fact is that if people were to see, I don't know if this will actually happen, because they've been talking about declassifying and they've been saying they're going to reveal all this shit. And Lindsey Graham's been prancing in front of the camera for so long about how we're going to get people. Yeah, fuck you. Do it already. Release all of this information. Let the floodgates flow. And then that would really shake up the race, because once it becomes apparent that James Clapper and John Brennan both lied under oath regarding surveillance against the Trump campaign in 2016, it will be a whole new ball game, because there's a lot of people that will start to say, well, unfortunately, it looks like the Obama administration did lie. It looks like all these people did conceal from the public the fact that they were spying on a presidential campaign. And at that point, you start to get revelations that Obama himself knew about this. And then, does Obama's advantage of being part of the does Biden's advantage of being part of the Obama administration, does it remain an advantage? It doesn't. I actually put that at the end, but it doesn't. Does Biden's advantage of being the media darling, does it remain an advantage? Not necessarily, because people will say, well, the media has said for the past 3-4 years that all of these rumors of spying and surveillance and the NSA and Carter Page, they're all conspiracy theories and Alex Jonesy shit. No, that becomes a whole new ballgame in every single way. You have people that will start to say suddenly, we don't want another Barack Obama. We don't want the same people, and we're going to look for a change. And that would certainly hurt Joe Biden in the primaries among voters who might have swung for Donald Trump in 2016 and might be wavering or whatever. Some of those people will come back to the Trump side, and some of those people might vote for Tulsi or might vote for. I mean, I'm hoping they're not going to vote for Bernie because he's also a complete idiot. So before I close, we're going to have two or three more minutes left. So welcome, Mr. Wazo. Mr. Wazo is back. I haven't seen him in a while. And Willman. So we're going to talk a little bit about the state of the states and the cities. Today, let's see if I can pull this up. So you have Baltimore Mayor. So this is awesome. Okay, the FBI and the IRS have searched the home of Catherine Pugh, the mayor of Baltimore, and she's been on leave. Get this, she's been on paid leave for over a month due to corruption allegations. Apparently, she did this auction where she sold these books that she published, these children's books, by the way. She sold them for like over $100,000 each, and people are starting to not wonder, well, is it true that our mayor could be corrupt? I mean, it's only happened like 50 billion times here in Baltimore. By the way, Nancy Pelosi's dad and brother were both mayors of Baltimore, I think. Let me see here. So yeah, Catherine Pugh's the current person. So there's been a lot of these people. So there's Tom D'Alessandro, who was her dad. And then, yeah, Tom D'Alessandro III, who is the brother of... So, yeah, you see here. This is Pelosi's brother. That's the mayor of Baltimore. You know, I know they don't necessarily look alike, but yeah. So this is the face. This is really, in my opinion, okay. I was listening to Lionel a little today. I got a little old because he just goes on and on and on, sort of like what you're hearing at the moment. But the fact is that what we can use, those of us that are opposed to Biden, opposed to the Democratic establishment, is say, look at this. We have the mayor of Baltimore. How many Democrats have to be elected mayor of Baltimore in order to show elected and then convicted of a crime? How many of them how many times does this have to happen before you start to say that this is a pattern? How many times do you have governors of Illinois? You have the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, is also under investigation for tax fraud because he removed some toilets from his mansion a couple years ago in order to do a write-off because it was uninhabitable. That's what you see. That's what you see with these people who are running your states and cities. Okay, I personally, my city is actually the city I live in is, you know, our mayor is fairly new, but the city of Cleveland, which I live pretty close to, Mayor Frank Jackson, he gets his grandson out of jail all the time for all sorts of real misdemeanors, including I believe at one point his grandson was arrested for illegal handgun possession. So you have these Democrats who they talk all the time about violence and gangs, and you know, we have to get guns off of our streets, and we have to give hope and pour resources into the community. You don't need fucking money for nothing when you're putting it into your pockets because of property taxes and federal grants and all of that. That is the broken state of our country. The broken state of our country is our states. It is our cities. That's really the problem here. So we have a lot of people here from the Hard Bastard channel. I'm glad that you guys are joining. Also glad that we have a lot of people that are loyal to this message and this channel. I want this channel to grow, but I'm not really banking on YouTube helping me. So I need you guys, before I leave, like the video, subscribe to the channel, share the video. Also check out, this is Razor Ray McCoy on Hard News. You have these two articles. Okay, this article is already in the chat, so you should have already seen it. But you have Miami Farce. You have two of these articles over here. Those are going to be the main stories for the time being, because we've exposed, me and my friend Adrian Lloyd, a real fraud where Rachel Maddow actually defamed by name Bernie Sanders supporters as Russian bots. And that's not something I take kindly to. I've been working on this for time. It is time, and I have received responses. But if you retweet this, and if you send this to people that you think could be resources to help us get this out, YouTubers, I'm thinking Kim Iverson, Michael Tracy. If you're talking about, Jamarl Thomas already knows. If you want to talk about, some people on the right, there's certainly some, I've tried to get V to pay attention to it. But anyone you can, please send it, retweet it, send a direct message, send it by email, send it by pigeon, send it by fucking, ballistic missile in Minecraft. That's about it. Have a great weekend. I will see you probably sometime Saturday night or Sunday. And have a blessed rest of your week.